Whenever you're trying to photograph birds in flight or other fast-moving wildlife, one of the toughest challenges is trying to keep track of them and keep them in your frame. So all too often, instead of looking like this, your photos end up looking like this, or maybe even like this. And that's where this guy comes in, the EE-1 dot sight, a simple and inexpensive accessory that will drastically improve your success rate. And even though it's from Olympus or now OM systems, it's compatible with pretty much any camera. So let's check out the EE-1 dot sight from OM systems. If you're photographing birds or other wildlife, you want to make full use of every pixel you have available to you to get the best image detail. So you want the subject to be as large as possible on your camera's sensor. And the obvious way to do that is by using a high-power telephoto lens. Now that works fine as long as your subject remains still, but birds and other animals have an annoying habit of moving, sometimes very rapidly and sometimes very unpredictably. And because your telephoto lens has such a narrow field of view, trying to track something like a bird in full flight becomes extremely challenging and in many cases close to impossible. And that's where this guy comes in, the EE-1 dot sight. What it does is provide you with a much wider field of view to allow you to track a subject while all the time maintaining it perfectly in your frame. So today we'll take a closer look at the EE-1 dot sight, we'll look at what it is, how it works, how to set it up, and of course we'll look at some of the results it can help you achieve. Now there's a lot to cover, so as usual I'll place the chapters up here and on the video timeline, but first this. Before we continue with today's video, a quick disclaimer. This video is not sponsored, paid for, or influenced in any way. I purchased all of the equipment with my own money and the opinions are entirely my own. Now I do include links to the featured products as well as my recording equipment. These may appear throughout the video and in the video description. If you purchase using these links, I may make a commission and this is what helps fund the channel, but rest assured there is no price disadvantage to you. You are getting the best price I can find. Alternatively, if you want to support the channel, you could follow this link and buy me a coffee. And of course, if you enjoyed today's video, please remember to hit the like button and consider subscribing to the channel for a lot more similar content. So back to the video. So the EE-1 is basically like a spotting scope for your camera, offering you a wider angle view but being aligned with your lens. Now if you're mounted to a tripod like I am here, you can use it in the same way as a traditional spotting scope. You can use it to pinpoint or at least get close to your subject and then transition over to using your viewfinder. But if you are photographing moving subjects and you don't want to be tethered to a tripod, then instead of using the viewfinder, the idea is that you continue to use the dot sight while you are taking the photos. Not only does the dot sight itself offer a wider field of view, but the fact that you are using it in this way means you maintain full visibility over everything that's going on around you, which allows you to better predict the movement of your subject and also gives you the advantage that you won't miss anything else that's going on in the scene. The EE-1 mounts to any hot or cold shoe and also features a lock, which is critically important. You definitely want to avoid the unit moving around in the hot shoe once it is calibrated. There is a slider on the back which is used to open up the dot sight, and when doing so it immediately powers on the laser which projects a reticle onto the screen. On the back of the EE-1 are two dials which are used for calibrating the dot sight, and we'll see those in action in the next section. And on the side of the EE-1 there is an additional dial which is used to adjust the brightness of the laser. Flipping the dot sight over, you can see that the connection is a cold shoe. There are no contacts to the camera, so as I mentioned earlier, this is completely universal and will work with any camera. The unit has its own onboard power, powered by a single CR2032 battery. Unfortunately, OM Systems provides no information about expected battery life. All I can tell you is that I've had mine powered on for several hours already, and there's no sign of the battery giving up yet. Okay, so before we use the EE-1 dot sight, the first thing we need to do is calibrate it. And the calibration is done for a specific lens and body combination. So that means, for example, if I switch out for a different lens, then I need to redo the calibration. Also, if I were to remove and remount the dot sight, it's a good idea to perform the calibration again to account for any slight movements that may have happened. Now, the calibration process is pretty simple. Basically, you're going to set up your camera on a tripod, aiming at a subject with the subject perfectly centered in the frame. And then we're going to use the two dials to adjust the position of the reticles so it perfectly aligns over that same subject. Now, one tip regarding the calibration: for the best results, I recommend placing your calibration subject at a similar distance to what you expect to be shooting. It doesn't have to be precise, but if you can get the distance pretty similar, it will help in keeping your subject in the center of the frame. Now, often you might not know this until you actually get to your shooting location, but as I said, the calibration is pretty straightforward, so it's easy enough to do on site. So once you are calibrated, you're going to want to set up a sequential high-speed shooting mode on your camera, and then when it comes to autofocus, if you are shooting against a clear sky background, you'll probably want to just maximize your autofocus area. That way, as long as the subject is somewhere in your frame, you'll get it in focus. In order to test the EE-1, I headed over to one of my favorite bird photographing locations, Big Beef Creek, an estuary off the Hood Canal where every year around the month of June, dozens of bald eagles gather at low tide to feed off fish trapped in the tide pools. Having settled in, I first found a suitable calibration target, probably around 30 to 40 meters away. Then it was time to catch some eagles in flight. Now, as an old school viewfinder user, holding the camera like this to shoot felt pretty strange at first. But I soon got used to it, and after a while it felt very natural. And I really appreciated being able to keep an eye on the entire scene. So for example, I was able to catch these two fighting that I would otherwise have missed if I was using the viewfinder. Now, what impressed me the most was the hit rate that I got. I took about 1,000 pictures, and what you're looking at here are all of those files, unsorted and unfiltered, still on the memory card. And what I find impressive is that there is a bird at or near the center of almost every image. There are very few blank or almost blank images that I would typically see on this type of shoot. And the more hits you have, the better your chances of getting that great shot. Talking of which, here are some of my favorites. So I have to say I'm pretty impressed with the EE-1 dot sight. I'm amazed at how such a simple device can drastically improve your hit rate and help you get better shots. Now, of course, it doesn't make your shots any better, but by improving your hit rate, it gives you more good shots to select from. Now, in case you're wondering, all of these shots were taken on an Olympus OMD M1 Mark III using the 100 to 400 millimeter zoom lens. And of course, with the Olympus being a micro four thirds sensor, that makes it a 200 to 800 millimeter equivalent. And of course, I will place links to all of the equipment, including of course the EE-1 dot sight, in the video description. Now, having got some great first results with this, I plan on heading back to that same location, but this time using a 2x teleconverter which will give me a 1600mm equivalent reach. And I will be sure to post the results here, so be on the lookout for those also. So that wraps it up for another video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed today's video, please remember to hit that like button and consider subscribing to the channel for a lot more similar content. If you have any questions, any comments, if you want to share your experience or make suggestions for future videos, please drop those into the comments section. Otherwise, thanks again for watching.